Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Chasing Dreams podcast with Charlie and Justin. We're on episode 92. It's a beautiful, gorgeous Saturday morning, and Justin is ironically not feeling beautiful and gorgeous.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the glories of new fatherhood and using daycare.
Yeah, yeah, you're kind of predisposed to illnesses at that point. I
Yeah.
remember when I started teaching, I would get sick all the time. Not all the time frequently, but it was like clockwork every year when we went to school in the
Right.
fall through like the winter period, just because it's kind of like a petri dish for those types of illnesses
Right.
where you're exposed to it. I don't know if it's kind of like you build up an immunity to it over the years, but knock on wood, I haven't had anything that's been
Right.
too hard pressing. I have a training partner that actually has COVID right now. And I hadn't seen him for probably a week or so prior to his test, his positive test. So it's not like I was like potentially exposed or anything, but we were set to work out, and he texted me and said, "Hey, I'm not going to be able to come today." Actually, I think it was the night before. He said, "I'm feeling like I'm getting a sinus infection or something, and I don't feel too well." He's like, "I'm very tired." So, long story short, he ended up feeling kind of crummy the next day, and I don't know if he went in specifically to get tested or if he went to get like medication for a sinus infection or what, but they ended up testing him, tested positive. Uh, the funny part was that the next day he felt perfectly fine.
Yep.
And he said he's just have a little bit of a sniffle, but he's been fine. And now the only thing he's struggling with is mentally being stuck in his room for a week or two.
Yeah.
So he said that he's going nuts because he feels well. Because if you feel sick, it's a little bit easier to stay quarantined because
Right.
you wouldn't want to do anything anyway, whereas he feels completely capable. He said, "I feel like I have a little bit of a sniffle, and that's about it." But
Right. And that's like, the whole thing with this COVID thing is like some people are getting a reaction that sucks.
yeah,
And then some people it sucks for 12 hours and then it's like gone, it moves through. And I couldn't imagine. Like I haven't ever had any of the symptoms, knock on wood, yet. Like of it, like over the 9 months, 6 months here that I've had a kid, and all these little colds and stuff. I have never had any of the symptoms, like more than one.
yeah.
I've had a cough or I've had a this or that, but I haven't ever had like the telltale symptoms.
Yeah, I think that the big message is just kind of continue to take care of your body. I know that I don't want to beat the dead horse or get into a politicized argument or anything with COVID, but it's just illnesses in general, seasonal illnesses specifically. You can kind of help mitigate the damage there by just taking care of yourself and putting yourself in a better position. Because once you get sick, for all intents and purposes, you could look at that as being too late. Like
Yeah.
once you're sick, I mean, you're sick.
You just gotta let it do its thing, but you can prevent it next time.
Yeah, you can be a lot more proactive with your approach with your health in the sense of sleeping and getting adequate recovery, your nutrition being optimal, your supplementation being optimal if it's necessary, if you're at a deficiency or feel like you could use some extra vitamin D, which I think that living in the northeastern United States everybody could.
Yep.
So just going about those things would be a lot more beneficial to you in the long run.
I feel like I'm almost a subject matter expert on this because I used to get sick not sick, but get these colds all the time. And then when I started eating healthy and taking vitamin supplementation and like really paying attention to my hydration and my sleep and recovery, I never got sick.
Well, how many times you say like the body is amazing if you give it what it needs to do its job.
Oh yeah, it's crazy.
Like if you give it the tools, it'll do unbelievable things. I think a lot of times it's beyond what we really think is capable. And yeah, actually, coincidentally enough, I was talking about you the other day because I was talking with a client about weight loss, and she's been pretty measured with her progress in the sense that it's very, very predictable. Like I know how much weight she's going to lose week to week based on this kind of consistent trend.
Like before she tells you.
Yeah, and she's not doing anything different from the nutritional side of things other than trying to be a little bit more responsible.
Good.
She said she's not limiting herself. Like if her friends want to go to dinner, she'll go to dinner. She'll try to make a little bit more sensible choices when she selects something off the menu that she's going to order. The only other lifestyle change has just been coming to the gym. So she's going to the gym regularly. And within a couple weeks, she's down 14 pounds, which is good, pretty consistent. Again, I know about how much she's dropping every week to week. And she and I were talking, and she said that it's nice because she's not losing it too fast. And we talked about a lot of times when people lose it too fast, they gain it back really quickly as well. And I said that I don't think that that's necessarily physiological based as much as it is practicality based. So if you lose a lot of fat quickly, I don't think there's any less likelihood that you're going to be able to keep it off as if you lost the same amount of weight fast or slow. I think the difference is the what it took to lose it fast isn't sustainable.
Right.
So if you lose 20 pounds in a month versus 20 pounds in 3 months, I don't think there's going to be a different internally at how your body adapts to that fat loss as far as keeping it off versus not keeping it off. I think the difference just lies in if you lost 20 pounds in a month, you're probably a lot more extreme with your nutrition or your training versus if you lost it in 3 months. So the extremity or the extremeness there, that's not sustainable. Right. So I think it's the lifestyle that's not sustainable. Not that you're, and I used you as an example. I said, Justin, one of my clients, lost all this weight, blah, 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 blah. And I said, we didn't do anything that was extreme when all that weight was coming off. We were doing sustainable practices. So it kept coming off and remained off.
Right.
And that was just something that, I thought was worth mentioning there. I don't even remember how we kind of started off that conversation before I kind of went on that little bit of a rant.
Well, I remember where we were at. Like, we were talking about being healthy versus getting sick. And I just think, like, what I was saying was, like, I'm like almost like a subject matter expert because it's proof. Because during that window when I was 100% clean, and I say 100% clean because, like, legitimately for a calendar year, I didn't eat anything that was not 100% prescribed to me by my coach.
That was the point of me bringing that up. Thank
Right.
you. Was that the amount of weight you lost is not common, but we didn't do anything outside of the ordinary.
No.
The only thing that was extraordinary was your adherence.
Yeah, it was just dedication. It was literally, because to me it was life and death. And I think because of the seriousness I took in it and how I ate, I never got sick. And now that have been relaxed, the last 6 months, having a newborn and really trying to wrap my head around that. And then we were just in COVID and everybody was trapped in their house other than going to work. I relaxed a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So I have been getting the little bugs. You know what I mean? I think some of the, not immunity, but the like my body's ability to remember. I don't know if that's what I should say or not, but like remember the healthiness of my diet and everything has held off the big stuff, but all these nagging little colds and stuff I'm getting again. And I'm like, I've had like 5 epiphany moments. Like, I never got these last year and a half ago.
Well, you try to think about those things. Like most people, they think that things happen by circumstance or chance, whereas with most of the things in your life, you can really connect the dots and figure out why things are happening.
Yeah.
Like, so for
example, your car gets repoed. What did you do?
Yeah. And you'll use the sickness as an example. Like, people could say, oh, I keep being sick and I'm not sure why. It's like, well, I'm sure if you looked very, very objectively about what your nutrition like, what your stress management is like, what your sleep's like, I think that you can probably connect the dots and say, oh, well, this would be why I'm getting sick. Yeah. I just don't think people take the time or have the foresight or hindsight or whatever to be able to do that. I guess it would be hindsight to look back and say, why did I get sick?
Yeah, or they don't want to know the truth.
Yeah.
They only want to know and I've been one of them for the majority of my life where it and you have the ability to see it, but you don't want to because then you have to come to terms with it.
Sure. I think that it's easier for people. It's ironic because people think it's easier to fix stuff, but it's actually easier to prevent stuff.
Yes.
Like, people want a quick fix in a reactionary sense, but if you're proactive, you won't have to deal with those issues.
Yeah.
Like, what's the best way to lose weight? Don't get fat in the first place.
Exactly.
Like, if you could, and I know that you as well, more than anybody could say, if I were to go back and do it all again from a childhood perspective, I would, knowing what you know now, you're not going to let yourself get to that point.
Yes and no.
I know where you're probably going to say the lessons learned and stuff like that, but
Right.
You're going to know those lessons.
Exactly.
You're not going to let yourself get to 500 plus pounds
Exactly.
and say,
Yeah.
you know, so if you knew that going in, you would have already learned the lessons and say, you know, I'm just going to stay, you know, because, yeah, you wouldn't have the things that you have now.
Right.
You wouldn't have our relationship or friendship. You wouldn't have a podcast. You wouldn't have,
and
probably, you wouldn't have any type of relationship with the gym, at least to the degree that you do.
yeah, like this past week, not being able to really work out because of this stupid cold has drove me nuts. And now that I'm going on vacation, I'm like racking my brain, like I'm getting over it, and I'm like excited to get back in the gym tomorrow, you know. But because I feel like today's like the first day, I feel like, yeah, tomorrow I'll probably be able to lift and do my thing.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be driving.
Yeah, and you're leaving tonight, right?
So I'm like, I went down to the gym this morning actually, and sidebar, went down to the gym this morning, and I was looking around, and I was like, all right, I'm not taking the truck, so I need to be smart about what I take, because we're taking the car, and I have a lot of stuff because we have a baby. I'm like, I take the power blocks and a curl bar and a set of plates. I think I should be fine. I think I could get enough in with that. So I think I have an inventory of what I gotta fit into the car, so I can get a workout in. It's not going to be optimal, but it'll be doable.
I kind of ran into a similar situation where I was on vacation recently, and it was 4 days or 5 days if you count travel, and I had not worked out prior to then either. I had about a week hiatus where I had a little bit of a glute / lower back issue going on. It wasn't something as simple as sciatica. I mean, it was complicated. Saw some specialists, couldn't figure it out. But the long and short of it is that I couldn't train for a while, and for probably about a week, because I couldn't even like sit down on a bench or lie back on a bench. So I couldn't even do anything upper body wise.
Right.
So I had that time off, and then immediately transitioned to vacation. And then by the time vacation was over, I was like, I need to get back in the gym.
Yeah.
So I think that, because people ask me, how do you navigate around training and nutrition when you're on vacation? In fact, I just got asked that a couple days ago. And the discussion that I have with people is that I actually believe, and I'm not saying there's a right or wrong way, I just know the way that works for me is to completely go off kilter. So for me, number one, I'm not trying to lose fat or lose weight. So having extra food, if anything, at that point is just going to help me from not necessarily from a physique perspective, but you know, that's just additional calories. So that's not a big concern. I'm probably going to get some type of benefit from rest and recovery of taking time off from the gym, which I don't normally do. I'm going to get the mental aspect of recovery in the sense that I'm not continuously like I don't want to say forcing myself to go to the gym because I like it, but you kind of grow fond of something the more separated you are from it. So if I'm away from the gym, I want to get back in there. So for me, when I go on vacation, like if I go on vacation for 4 days, I just eat what I want. I don't go to the gym. I don't actively seek out exercise because it's a time for me to kind of relax and down-regulate things. Now, I don't know that everybody's like that, nor should everybody be like that. And I'm saying this in the context of someone who's just in the off season, so to speak. Now, like if it's a contest prep and I'm like on a diet, well then,
right,
I'm not going to go on vacation in the first place.
Yeah, because you're not going to throw a wrench into your own plan.
But if I had to leave town, then it would be a completely different scenario. It's a completely different context.
What you needed.
Yeah, but for me, I like to handle vacations and just get away from everything.
And so basically that's how I handle it too. Because I was just asked this, like, I don't even know, like 3 or 4 days ago. I was in my truck at work, and I was eating my meals, and I had a buddy get up on my door while I was actually fishing out my third meal of the day, and he's like, "Aren't you leaving next week on vacation?" I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "How are you gonna eat like that and like do everything you do while you're on vacation?" I'm like, "Well, I'm not really. Like, you know, I'd have like, 51 weeks a year where I'm dedicated, like 100% to the cause. And then that week that I spend at the beach with my family, my whole family, not that I go hog wild, but if my mom makes cookies, I'm going to eat a cookie. If I'm cooking on the grill and I'm smoking a bunch of meat for everybody, I'm just going to eat it with them, because not everybody like we don't like guys like you and I are we don't like celebrate like things with food.
Yeah.
But not everybody in my family, especially, is on that level. So like a lot of celebration, with the air quotes there, is with food. So I'm not gonna put it on our vacation because it's not just my vacation; it's our vacation. I'm not gonna put a damper on them because of what my normal day to day is. And like you said, a week and a half isn't gonna kill you anyways.
Yeah.
As long as you have the forward thinking mindset that the day you get home, it's business as usual.
Sure. Hmm.
Like 100% business as usual. Wake up and do your thing. And that's just my plan. And I know the whole taking stuff on vacation with me to work out, that's a psychological thing for me. I enjoy working out. And it gives me, it's almost like my anti-depression medicine. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like to be able to do a couple exercises. I'm going to get up and I'm going to go for a walk in the morning. Like my early morning feeding with my daughter, I'm going to just go for a walk after. And then when we're all getting up for the day, I'm going to do a quick workout and then we're just going to go about our day.
Yeah.
So, but that's kind of how I plan to handle the weight loss journey on vacation.
Hmm.
So,
Well, I think that like you never want to create a rewards and consequences system with your relationship with food, your relationship with the gym, because that runs into a slippery slope where people justify anything
exactly.
and then try to punish them. So like, oh, I can eat these cookies, but I'm gonna have to do an extra 10 minutes of cardio, which doesn't seem like much at surface value. But when you form that type of a relationship with food in the gym, like the gym becomes the punishment. Like one of the things that I thought was interesting that I read one time in coaching is that you never want physical activity to be punishment. Like don't think, oh, well, we're gonna spend 15 extra minutes lifting or we're going to do extra conditioning. Now, I know that every program in the country does that to a degree, but you want to put emphasis on the importance of something, not use it as punishment.
Right.
So I don't want to create a reward system when it comes to your health, but I think there is benefit in a sense to looking at things as earning them.
Yeah.
So like earn the vacation. One thing that Austin, my coach, and I had the discussion with is earning the right to only train or lift 3 or 4 days a week. Yeah. Like Austin only trains 3 days a week, 4 days a week. And the reason he does that is because he has to, because he trains low volume, but very, very high intensity, very, very heavy load. He does like a traditional DC split where you're working a few basic exercises at max effort as far as load goes, and you're constantly aiming to beat the logbook, so doing more than last week. And you're going to run into some systemic fatigue there. You're going to run into nervous system overload where your sleep's going to, take a hit or your immune system's going to take a hit if you're doing it too frequently. You can't train like he does 5 or 6 days a week. And if you say that you can, then you're not actually training like
you're not,
he is.
That's that's an interesting topic that you brought up before is people's perception of max effort.
Yeah. Yeah. And so what I do is I always think of it as I have to earn the right to only train 4 days a week. If I'm lifting 4 days a week, then I better be lifting 4 days a week because that's all I'm capable of doing, right, not because I want to. And so you could kind of look at vacation in a similar light. Like I want to earn the right to take this downtime because it is absolutely necessary for me from a physical, mental, and emotional side of things. I need to just de-escalate and relax a little bit. And like I told you, it was hard for me when I didn't necessarily earn that. So the example that I would use would be this last vacation where I took some time off from the gym. Now I needed that time off from the gym, but while I was on vacation, I was like itching to get back because I knew that the previous week wasn't like this very, very difficult week where I had earned some time off at all.
Yeah, and that's kind of how I feel already because I haven't worked out this week because of this cold. And I anticipated, it's wrote down in my logbook, my forward, like, because I forward think throughout the weekend when I write my logbook out, what I anticipated doing this week. And the goals I set for like at the end of last week for this week were, I had some high aspirations because everything was functioning good.
Mm.
And then this happened. And I was like, no. You know what I mean? So it's like, I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
You really have to try to earn your vacation.
Mm-hmm. So I think that's a good place to go to a commercial break. So let's go to a quick break, and then when we come back, we'll give a little bit more of an update on what we've been doing. Because we kind of did this in reverse. Generally, we start with what we've been doing, and then where we're going. Where we started, where we're going. So we'll kind of look back at the weekend review when we come back from our commercial break. As listeners of the Chasing Dreams podcast, we know that you demand the highest quality at all times. If you're interested in quality, look no further than Beast Mode Baking. Beast Mode Baking aims to bring the highest quality, creative, and of course delicious baked goods to your home with nationwide shipping. All orders need to be pre-ordered to ensure they're packed fresh and shipped out to you as soon as possible. Beast Mode Baking offers a flat rate of $15 for shipping due to the size and weight of the cookies and doughs. So if you're interested in Beast Mode Baking, please contact CEO Shannon Knorr. That's at SKNORR13 on Instagram and order your delicious baked goods today, because every time you support them, you're supporting the podcast as well. And we're back from our commercial break. All right, so prior to the break, you and I talked about what you're going to do on vacation and stuff like that. Let's kind of look at a weekend review. I know that you may not have much from the trading side of things, but sometimes I think it's important that we show transparency and share, like, in our personal lives outside of the gym stuff, like what's been going on. Is there anything new, or is it business as usual, which could be a good thing in and of itself?
No, it was a rough week for us, for our family. We lost one of our oldest members of our family over the past week. It was actually last Saturday today. And the funeral was in the middle of the week. So there was a family gathering, and, it is what it is. It really does suck, but she's in a better place. So, But, there's something from that I try to take every time, and it sucks because it's always at funerals and weddings. You get together with all these people that you haven't seen but you're related to, and we talked about this before, reaching out and staying in contact with the people that are important. And you always say at a funeral or at a wedding, we got to get together more and stop meeting like this. And I called every single person that said that to me or started to say that to me. I called them on the carpet, and I called myself on the carpet too. I said, I'm sick of us always saying, let's get together more at funerals and weddings.
Yeah.
Why don't we actually get together more so when this happens, it's almost like a casual meeting?
Well, I feel like it's kind of cliche that that's something that people just do out of habit.
Yeah.
Like say, oh, we need to get together more. Now, it's not that the feelings aren't genuine. I know that when people say that, they truly mean it, and I'm guilty as well. How many people are actually react upon that and say, okay, I'm going to contact you in a week or 2 weeks and see what you're up to, and maybe we can hang out. Like if I tell someone I'm going to touch base with them in the future, I try like heck to make sure that I actually go through and touch base with them in the future.
And then we all fail at it, though.
Yeah, to some degree, for sure.
I do exactly that too. I mean, if I tell you I'm going to get a hold of you, I really do mean that I want to get a hold of you. I think the problem is where I struggle is, and I think this is where a lot of people struggle, is we say that, and we have our circle, like our immediate group of family and friends that we do contact regularly. Mm-hmm. And if you have a pretty like broken down and dialed in life where you're planning everything, where do you add new people to talk to? And they're not new by any stretch. They are actually older than most of the people you do talk to. But where do you add them in to your normal schedule? Like, how do you make a new normal schedule?
Man, that's like...
Because I think that's why.
That's one, like, thing that I go back and forth on in regards to life in general, where people can take certain things, and again, I do this all the time with people, especially with the gym, where people can take certain things and point towards times you could fit it in and say, well, you're just making an excuse. So take the gym, for example. People say, I don't have time for the gym, and our response is always, you do have time, you just need to make it. You can go to the gym for a half hour 3 times a week and see progress. This is how you do it, right?
Right.
And that's all good. But what I tend to lose sight of, and I need to continuously remind myself of this when I explain that to people, when I tell them, yeah, you have time for the gym. Well, how many other dozens and dozens and dozens of things, because people would say, oh, well, you can do this, it just takes 5 minutes. You can meal prep, it just takes 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
You can go to the gym, it just takes 30 minutes. You can reach out to a friend that you haven't spoken to every day, that just takes 5 minutes. Well, all those practices build up
All
to
those
where
minutes are
suddenly
hours.
it's hours and you don't have that time. So it's interesting how when I live my life, I go through this daily, if not daily, at least weekly kind of self-analysis of things that I did this week or things that I didn't do this week that I should have. And it's like, where could I fit those in? But maybe those would actually take the place of this. And
Right.
it's a shame that the number one limiting thing that we have is time.
Yeah, it is. And it's the hardest thing to beat.
Yes.
Because you can beat willpower, you can beat planning, you can beat adversity and environment, but time is, it's of the essence. You know what I mean?
Well, one thing that with time that hit really hard for me this past week. So without going into too much detail, I hired a business coach, like a team that's going to help me grow my coaching brand and that sort of thing. And these guys obviously have made millions and millions of dollars doing this. So it's not like I'm just going someone down the road and saying, hey, can you help me build my following? Can you help me come up with some strategies? Because the way that I look at it, and I'm going to get back to the time thing in a minute, but just to give some context here, my coaching business is to the point where I can't possibly work any harder or work any more. So if I'm topped out with the number of, this is online specifically, so like my online coaching, I have reached the point where I can't train any more people because of the other avenues of my life. Now it's kind of a catch-22 where I can't do Y until X is done, but I can't do X until Y is done.
Right.
I can't build because I've kept my online clientele low purposefully because I can't give them the attention they need. Because I train so many athletes at the gym and I'm teaching at school or whatever. Well, I also can't grow that until I'm done with those things, but I can't be done with those things until I grow my business financially. So it's kind of a catch-22. It's a tough, difficult area to navigate through for me. But regardless, I feel like it's something that I have potential in and I need to build up. And part of that is putting a system in place, because one of the things that I do is high degree of contact with my clients. And I know that that's irregular, and I purposefully set it up that way, where when you hire a coach to work like an online coach, most of the time, the only time you communicate with them is a very brief weekly email exchange.
Right.
And that's okay. But I said, well, if I want to be better, I'm going to provide more value. How am I going to provide more value to people? I'll talk to them more. So then that was my idea of adding more value, is talking to them regularly. If I spend more time with someone, that's automatically going to equate to more value. And I found out that it doesn't, because what I did was when I would talk to people and check in with them daily, there oftentimes wasn't much substance because they didn't have anything new to report.
Right.
Like
you got to give it time to make changes.
Like that's why a weekly check-in is great, because it gives you a full week sample size versus when I'm checking in with people every day, I would get the same responses from everybody. Yeah, everything's good, thanks. And I thought that I was giving more value. I thought that I was providing more for people, but in essence, it was just blank communication that wasn't necessary.
And so did you find that, like, when you were doing the daily stuff, that if you looked at a week in review, you didn't get as much substance for the whole week, every single day, like compiling every single day, as to now when you're doing just weekly?
Possibly, yeah. Because people are giving me little bits and chunks versus if I only talked to them, and they wouldn't give me much.
Right.
But when they would do like their week review, if I hadn't talked to them as much, it seems like I would get more out of them.
Right.
Even though they weren't giving me anything when we were talking every day, but the week in review was a little bit more thorough for sure. So what I need, the reason I brought this up is I need to streamline things and come up with a system of onboarding people, networking or coaching people, and how I can do that efficiently and be financially higher because of it. So I've hired this team, and they're going to work with me. And it was obviously a very, very, very aggressive move on my part because of the amount of money. I'm not going to get into specifics, but thousands and thousands of dollars that I'm putting into this because the return on investment should be supersede that tenfold. But, and I had a conversation during one of the calls to find out, because you go through these call processes to find out if this is a good fit. Not only am I a good fit, are they a good fit for me? Is this what I want to do? But also, am I a good fit for them? Can they help me to the degree that they want to be able to help me? Because they're invested too. Obviously, you're giving them money, but word of mouth and reviews are what they're after. You know, they always say that we want success stories because that's going to help us long term. So what I did was, I had this call with this, the one of the guys in charge, and one of the things that we brought up was time, because he said, and I thought this was phenomenal, he said that people always run away from things faster than they run to things. He's like, so you can say, I want to make $100,000, I want to make this amount a month, I want to make 7 figures a year, and you're not going to run nearly as hard as you are away from what you're trying to avoid. He's like, so let's say you go 10 years down the road and you keep things how they are. He said, where are you going to end up? And I said, exactly where I'm at, but a lot more stressed, a lot more tired, and a lot more depleted emotionally, physically, and mentally. He's like, exactly. He said, I don't want you to run towards the $100,000. He's like, I want you to run away from being average, from being mediocre, from being one down, from working 1,000 hours a week, whatever you're doing. He's like that. And then he used the analogy of like running to a finish line or running away from a lion. It's like, you're obviously going to run harder. So he had this discussion with me about being average and where I would see myself in 10 years if I didn't self-improve. And I talked to him, I said, really it's predicated on time, because if I go from 21 to 31, like obviously I made a lot of progress, but to be honest, a lot of that was backloaded in the past like year or two where I've made a ton of progress. And I said that if I made as little progress from 21 to 31, if I make as little progress from 31 to 41 as I did 21 to 31, then my next 10 years, if they're as equally unproductive as my first 10 years, then I'm going to be in a bad spot. And some people can look at my life and say that I have made progress, and I'm not dismissive of that, but it's not nearly what I think that it should be. So the discussion of time was really the forefront of everything that we talked about. And it's like, man, like time is really, really, really important for everything that you do. And it's time's kind of a paradox, because you always say how much of it you have at the beginning and then how little of it you had at the end.
Right.
Isn't that weird? Like you always say, oh, I got time. And then as soon as it's gone, it's, oh, I didn't have enough time.
And now it's like, and once you realize that your time is essentially running out.
It is.
And it always is.
It always will be.
I mean, from the time you breathe, the first time, your time is running out. It's like, you're behind. I feel like I'm always behind the 8 ball. And that's okay.
Yes.
Honestly, in my opinion, that's the best way to feel, because if you're behind the 8 ball, you're rolling. Like, you got to go.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like one of the things that I've been trying to say is like, we got to go.
You have to I think that life teaches its best lessons under pressure.
Yes.
So for me, like, or anybody for that matter, when do you take care of your health the most? When you have a scare.
Yeah.
Like, I know people that have a heart attack, a minor heart attack, and it scares the crap out of them, justifiably so. And then they start getting their nutrition, their training, and everything in check. And it's like, because it scares them. It scares them into being healthy. And life is like that with everything. So, like, if you're running out of time, or you put yourself behind the 8 ball in a high-pressure situation, you have to perform. Part of that was incentivizing me to spend this much money on this service, because now I'm thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars invested in this.
Right.
So now I have to perform. I have to go because I'm not wasting that type of money.
Yeah.
I noticed that even on a smaller scale with my training. I told you before, the more I charge people for nutrition, the better the more I got out of my athletes and my clients, because if I charge someone $50 a month, that's nothing to some people. Yeah. So they treat it like it's nothing. Now that I've started, upping my price several $100s a month, people are investing the money and they're investing the time now because the money's invested there.
Yeah.
Because they feel the pressure to do so. It's like when we talked with Dr. Ryan and he said,
That is so weird.
Is that where you're going to
Oh
go with
my
that?
God, yeah.
When he's one of the things he
Go
says
when you're
is
going all in.
give yourself no choice.
Yeah.
You know, quit your
Put your
job.
wedding ring on it.
Yeah, quit your job. Sign a legal document. You know, sell your house. Move. Like, do something that you have no choice.
Yep.
Well, I got to do this now. There is no plan
Yeah.
B. It's not that I don't want to go to plan B. It's that there is none. There is
Yeah.
no plan B. I
Don't
have to
give
see
yourself
this
a plan B.
Don't give yourself an out. Yeah. Which, and I talked to the individual, the coach who I was meeting with for our initial call before we kind of signed up and decided to go through with everything. He and I had probably about like an hour-long discussion about things. And one of the things that I contemplated with him is like, you know, if I wanted to pursue this full time, quitting teaching would be a discussion that I had internally with myself. And I love teaching. I love it. So it has nothing to do with teaching in and of itself. It has to do with I want to put myself in a situation where I'm making so much money and helping so many people that I can't possibly bring myself to continue teaching. And the only way to build that is to have more time. And the only way to have more time is get away from things. So again, that vicious cycle. And he said that sometimes, you know, that's what you need to do. But then he also was insightful and gave the counter argument is you also don't want to be stupid and reckless.
Yeah.
Where you put yourself in a bad situation. Because we hear about all these success stories of people who put themselves in those do or die situations,
Right.
and they succeed. What we don't hear about is the 99.99% of people that do that and fail.
Exactly.
You never hear about that. So he's like, you want to push the envelope, but you also don't want to be irresponsible. And that's a hard line because I don't really know where that line is. In fact, most people don't know where that line is. So that's just kind of the interesting discussions that you have about time and about goal setting and about pressure situations. But I definitely agree with the take-home message here that life teaches its best lessons in under pressure.
Yeah.
You know, like I think that if you were to go and have a heart attack tomorrow, we're both going to react. Like if I had a heart attack, I would definitely change my ways a lot more than if I would just normally saying, oh, I'm always, every day I'm trying to be healthier.
Yeah.
Well, then that suddenly ups the ante a little bit.
It doesn't cut it anymore.
Like, I think I've talked about this analogy before in regards to trading frequency, but it holds equal weight in this discussion where Dante Trudell, who is he's a guy that kind of invented or popularized, he coined DC training, which is just high intensity, high frequency, low volume training. So basically doing things very heavy, doing them repetitively, and doing them often, but not doing a lot, like shorter workouts, really heavy, really hard, get out, recover, and then repeat. And he used this in terms of advocating for high frequency. So not doing, if you want to build your chest, not doing chest once a week, because the week is a man-made thing. Like that's not a physiological concept that your body knows.
Right.
Like who said we have to train chest once a week? Like we don't. We could train it longer, more frequent than that. It's just
train it every other day.
Yeah, as long as you're recovered.
And you're, as long as you allow proper recovery, you just keep going.
So he kind of used the analogy of your family getting kidnapped. So he said, if you had to add 100 pounds to your squat in a month, he's like, and your family gets kidnapped, and they have a gun to your family's head, and said the only way you get your family back is you have to add 100 pounds to your back squat within the next month. Are you only going to go once a week, 4 days? That's 4 training sessions. Are you going to add 100 pounds to your squat by training legs 4 times? Because, once a week is optimal for recovery and for performance. He said, no. He said, you're going to get in the gym every single day and squat and do everything humanly possible to recover. Now, again, that main discussion was about recovery and training frequency, but I think there's like the bigger picture here of sense of urgency.
Yeah.
And I think that you would be amazed at what you can accomplish if there's a sense of urgency. So like, here's the question. Do we have a responsibility to put ourselves in urgent situations? Or does life, for some of us, give us enough urgent situations?
Yeah.
I think that life certainly does, but for me, I think it's individually dependent. I think it depends on the individual. For me, I can tell you that I probably need to put myself in more pressure situations because my life is too comfortable. You know, maybe if we lived in a third world country, we would not be able to do that, or we wouldn't have to put ourselves in disadvantageous situations because life has dictated or bestowed that upon us. Where you and I, and I'm going to use some good language here. I'm going to say that we're not blessed enough to have enough high pressure opportunities in our life to callous us to the point where we're able to kind of be tough. We talked about resiliency in previous episodes. And I think that maybe we need to put ourselves in high pressure situations for performance. Like, and it's like you talk about at the gym. I've had this jokingly with people say, if you're going to max out your bench and go for a new record that you've never hit before, don't have a spotter. And I say, oh, that's so dangerous. Yeah, but if you don't have a spotter, it's do or die. You have to get it up. And, I'm not saying that people, again, that fringes on reckless. But, like, I just think that if you put yourself in do or die situations, not literally die, but sometimes die, fight or flight responses, I think that you're going to find out what you're made of. So maybe that could be a challenge to our listeners as we wrap up the episode this week. Find something that you do this week that leaves you no opportunity for plan B, kind of like a do or die situation. I have to make this. Drive your car or have somebody drive you somewhere away from your house 3 miles and drop you off. So now you got to run home. You're not going to quit those 3 miles because you're 3 miles from your house and from your car.
Right.
If you go to the track and say, I'm going to run 3 miles, you can quit after 2. You can quit after 1.5. You can quit after 1.
Talked about that for years.
And say, oh, I'm too tired. I'm just going to go to my car. I gave good effort today. Put yourself in situations where you have to get the job done.
Yeah. Remember when I used to sit my water bottle at the opposite end of the track?
Yeah.
So I had to go back around again.
Yep.
And then we would talk and make it to where I'd forget to pick it up.
Yep. So I think that would be a good place to end. So let's, challenge our listeners. Hey, go out and put yourself in a pressure situation. It doesn't have to be super high stakes. It could be something little like that where you need to perform. And then I will do the same.
Yeah, I'll do it.
And then we'll come back and we'll talk about what we put ourselves through where we had to do something a certain way because there was no plan B, and then what like the take-home message was or what we learned because of it.
Right. Sounds like a plan.
All right. So with that, we have come to the end of another episode of the Chasing Dreams podcast with Charlie and Justin. This has been episode 92. We appreciate you and we appreciate all of life's challenges. So hopefully you look forward to challenging yourself this week and checking back with us in the next episode. Unbreakable.